Well, welcome. Thank you, everyone, so much for joining in today for another episode of Impact Aurora, inspiring unity, change, and service. My name is Jordan Clark, really excited to be with all of you today for another exciting conversation as we just continue to showcase some of the remarkable leaders in our community and the great work that's taking place across Aurora. I'm honored to be here with my co-host and my colleague, Jill. I'll let her introduce herself. So Jill, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks, Jordan. Always fun to co-host with you as both a friend and a professional here in the Aurora community. And thanks for serving as kind of a co-president for us, as we have been the longest class ever with Leadership Aurora. But really today, it's not about us. It is about the Community College of Aurora and their foundation and their leaders. And so today I'm really excited to welcome Betsy Oudenhoven and John Wolfkill. Betsy is the president of CCA. We'll kind of call it CCA throughout because I think it just rolls off the tongue. And John is the executive director of the CCA Foundation. So excited that you're both here. We know that you're both alumni of Leadership Aurora, so excited to hear about your experiences in the program and to just kind of how that's been embedded in the longer Aurora community and your careers here. So thanks again for taking time with us today. I'll kind of kick it to both of you. I'll let you decide who wants to go first, but if you just provide a brief overview and just a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Jill and Jordan. I think John has volunteered me to go first. So yeah, I'm Betsy Oudenhoven. I'm the president of CCA, and this is my 42nd year in higher education. So I'll just give you a brief summary. I actually grew up in upstate New York. I did my undergraduate work in New York, and then I came out to Colorado and I went to CU Boulder and got a master's in counseling. And then immediately after that, I moved to the Midwest and I worked in student affairs at four-year state universities in Wisconsin and Minnesota. And then my husband and I went back to upstate New York and worked at one of the SUNY schools for almost 15 years. And started our family, raised our kids, and then ended up making a professional move to the Chicago area where, happily for me, I had the opportunity to transition to community colleges. And so we spent almost 15 years in the Chicago area, and I had the opportunity to work at community colleges. I actually ran a community college counseling center for a number of years, and I also went to Loyola University Chicago, where I got my doctorate in higher education. So those were great years. About the time my kids were in college, I had the opportunity to be a vice president for student affairs at a large urban community college in kind of the southwest part of Chicago. And then they graduated from college and it was time for a change. And happily for me, once again, I had the chance to come back to Colorado. I had always hoped to come back. It just took me a really long time. And I'm just so lucky that I landed at CCA. Linda Bowman, who was the president at the time, hired me to be her vice president for student affairs. And that was pretty much the game plan. I came in 2011. I had a couple great years as VP, and then I became president in 2013. More to that story, but I've been doing that now for 8 years, and it's just a tremendous place. I've worked at a number of different institutions of higher education. CCA is my favorite. And so that's enough. I will turn it over to John.
Well, and you can see very quickly as I tell my story, when I think about why I came to Community College of Aurora Foundation to CCA, Betsy was a huge reason, part of that interview process, meeting her. You'll understand that throughout this interview, why it's such an amazing opportunity to work alongside a leader like Betsy. But my story, it began during a tornado. I was born during a tornado in Oklahoma, and they moved me to a safe room. That probably describes a lot of my personality, I think, and probably the foreshadowing of why I eventually, my father and I founded Captain Kane, the mascot of the University of Tulsa, which is a golden hurricane. So tornadoes, hurricanes, there's something about wind and movement and motion that definitely describes my life and my journey. But growing up in Oklahoma, I had a chance to spend a summer overseas in Ukraine in a town called Lugansk. And I remember learning the Russian alphabet on the way there, and came back, speaking conversationally in Russian. And that experience really was one of those moments that you feel the ground shift under your feet. And so it shifted my life trajectory from where I was heading towards seminary to going towards grad school and really focusing in international and intercultural education. That took me to Los Angeles, to the University of Southern California for grad school. And I tell people all the time, I did some great learning at USC, but I'll be honest, I got a great education in the community of Watts. And so while I was in LA, I had an incredible privilege and honor of working in South Central Los Angeles in Watts. And I am so grateful for leaders, and thinking about like Leadership Aurora. It was really leaders that took time, that had so much grace. Oh my gosh, so much grace for this young, naive, suburban Tulsa, Oklahoman kid, who they just pulled aside and coached and supported, and really shifted again the way I thought about my career. I thought about what it means to walk alongside of a community as an outsider, a really asset-based mindset. Some things took us back. We thought we'd be moving to Indonesia, ended up moving back to Tulsa. And it was another moment while I was working at the Tulsa Community Foundation, where I was sitting in a room with our superintendent of Tulsa Public Schools and some other donors, and we were listening to him present about the district as he was making a case for the Gates Foundation support to come to Tulsa. And in that presentation, he said that only 7% of students were graduating ready to start college without needing remediation, and 1 to 2% if you were African American or Latinx or Hispanic. And so that was one of those ground shifting moments that again shifted my career. I went home, told my wife, I said, I don't know how it's going to work out, but my goal is in 2 years, I want to get back into education reform full time. And, we just cannot let that statistic be true about in the city where we're raising our kids. And that district was about 40,000. So pretty similar to Aurora in the size. And 2 years later, I started working at KIPP, Knowledge is Power program, part of a national network of charter schools, high-performing public charter schools. And so I was executive director of KIPP Tulsa, where I stayed for 5 years. And with that team really proved what was possible in public education. And, then the opportunities came for my wife. Just Tulsa had not been as great for her career. And we always said, we're going to support each other's dreams. And so we said, look, we lived in Los Angeles. We almost moved to Indonesia. We can live anywhere. So let's pick the 5 best cities for your career and let me go to work and build some networks and see what happens. And when Denver was on the list of the top 5, I was secretly already like, it needs to be Denver. And so I was so thrilled that when I had the chance to come and work and see the kind of equity, inclusive excellence, the kind of real laser focus that Betsy brings to student success, it was a pretty easy decision. I told my wife after, it was like a 5-hour interview process that day. It included a community reception and everything else. It was a long day, but I told her on my way to the airport, I was like, if they offer, this is where I'm going. This is where I want to be. And so I feel so privileged and honored to have been at CCA for almost 5 years now.
Wow.
That's great. John, I'm just imagining you as a golden tornado in LA. I'm trying to make that a line in my brain. But thank you both kind of for sharing your backgrounds. Yeah. I think Aurora's really lucky, blessed, probably all of those words to have leaders like you in our community. And I think that's what makes Aurora so special is there's a lot of really humble people who are really driven by the work and the needs and the outcomes. So thanks for all that you do in the community. Let's shift a little bit and talk about your Leadership Aurora experience. I know you're both alumni, so if you want to kind of talk about the class that you had, probably your best class ever, and how that shaped you in your work and how that you see that play out today.
Oh, so let me be clear, mine really was the best class ever. I know that many of my classmates will see this someday, and so I just need to give them a shout out. So I moved to Aurora in 2011, and 2011, 2012 was my first year at CCA, and I was living here by myself. My husband hadn't joined me yet, and so mostly I was just working. And so that was great to get to know the college. And then I had the opportunity to do Leadership Aurora in the 2012-2013 class. And as you all know, at the end of July in 2012, we had the theater shooting. And so it was a really unique and difficult time in the city for everyone. The college was impacted by that. I was again, I had mentioned that I ran a community college counseling center for a number of years. Those skills came in really handy because the day of the shooting was actually the day that we went through a transition to a new president who, was coming from outside Aurora and outside the college, and super tough time to start. And so it was interesting for me because there was a lot of responsibility around both the grieving process and also fear that folks had around things like, active shooters. And so, it was a really kind of challenging year at the college. And my class had the opportunity to get to know kind of behind the scenes in the community how all these different entities were addressing the aftermath of the shooting. And actually, we got to hear some stories more about what had happened. And I just, I had told Jordan this earlier. For me, it was a powerful experience because I do live in Aurora. I have since I moved out here. And, there's kind of that, Aurora is a suburb of Denver. And, Steve Hogan, he wasn't having any of that, right? But I think in a way, we had to come together to get through that. And, I was immediately just stunned by how everyone stepped up and their resilience and their care for each other. Aurora Mental Health Center, the weekend that it happened, I got a call from a counselor at the mental health center. I mean, I just was so impressed with the resilience, the leadership, the thoughtfulness, and it tied me, I think, to the college and to the community emotionally in a way that likely would have taken a whole lot longer. Because we went through this together. My class, at the same time, we got to learn all about the city, and it's such a fascinating place. It's so diverse. It's so wonderful. It has so much to offer. Jill had kind of mentioned this. The leaders here are accessible. They're humble. They're helpful. I hadn't experienced that before. And there's so much need. And so along the way, it wasn't just about the theater, but it was about all of what these different entities do to step up and help our community. And happily for us, I had a hysterical class. They were really funny. There were probably a few moments where we got some eye rolls from our chamber colleagues and other folks, but I think in that moment, it was helpful to have a little lightness. I think my class just came at it with so much enthusiasm and interest and dedication. And I see those folks still all the time. I was kind of stunned to realize that, in fact, we did get to know each other and we did become friends. It's a pretty large class, but just and all across the city and the community in all different sectors. And so I can't say enough about what an incredible experience it was. And we still laugh about the fact that when I started Leadership Aurora, I was a vice president. A month after I finished Leadership Aurora, I became the president. So clearly it worked.
Oh, that's fabulous.
That's awesome.
Yeah. How about you, John? We'll let you speak to the same question.
Sure. While, this 2012, 2013 group might have been the best class, and this current class, your class, Jordan and Jill, might be the longest lasting class, it's no doubt that the class of 17, the 16, 17 year, was the most impactful class for sure. That's what we like to brag about. it was really an amazing time. And kind of like Betsy's story, you know, I came in May of 2016, started Leadership Aurora, in August, I guess, was maybe that first event of 2016. So I'd only been here a few months, really. And, you know, it was a brand new community, was just trying to, you know, get to know the college like Betsy was, get to know the community. And I have to say, like, that was, when I think back to what Leadership Aurora did for me, it built like deep roots in a very intense and very quick way for someone that was fairly new to the community. It also gave me a really broad understanding of the different industries and sectors and organizations and businesses that were really impacting and driving this incredible growth, incredible transition, and just development across Aurora. And so I think of Leadership Aurora, it was not just about, it wasn't just about learning so much, it was about these deep roots and these relationships. And I think, like, in education, in sort of nonprofit work, I mean, relationships are really more important oftentimes than even skill, right? Because it's the ability to sort of work and deliver and achieve outcomes with others and through others. And so Leadership Aurora was amazing. And it's so different because it's not about building leadership. It really is about taking leaders and sort of getting them together and coalescing around a vision for the city and a vision for philanthropy and a vision for service, and just like unleashing them. And so I think that's what, you know, our class and what I loved, and maybe later talk a little bit about our project, which was probably the most memorable experience, was just working. Literally, I was looking back at our things, and we had, it looks like, if I'm counting the number of people, it looks like almost 90% of our class participated in our large project. We had some smaller ones. And to see that kind of togetherness, and to work closely over several months to produce this event was pretty phenomenal, and something I look back to as a great success and a memorable moment of my life. Like in my highlight reel, Leadership Aurora Class of 17 and our Homeless Connect project, our Aurora Connect project, would definitely be in the highlight reel of my life.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, so I guess just kind of speaking of that, you know, that's something, and John, to your point, and Betsy, all of your wonderful comments around the Leadership Aurora program, is it does have that heart of really wanting to bring different leaders from across the community, all different sectors. We have education, even on this interview this morning, we have leaders from education to philanthropy to nonprofit work. And it's just really remarkable to see that gathering of such leaders together. And really the heart of the program really is to kind of be able to give back and provide those service opportunities to the community. So would you all actually be able to just speak a little bit about some of the class projects? And that's something that the Leadership Aurora program does with every class every year, is selecting a project to ultimately give back to the community with all of the leaders that are represented from all different sectors. So would you all be able to just kind of speak to the wonderful class projects that you all were able to work on?
John, keep going.
Yeah, and I know Betsy had they had a really impactful project as well. So we brought together, really there was kind of my friend David and Olga and I sort of co-hosted this one. I think Danielle was part of that as well. But like I said, about 90% of our class, all that could, participated on the day of and many days leading up to what became the city of Aurora's first ever sort of Aurora Connect, based on kind of the Denver Connect, which is a giant one-day event to help serve individuals and families that are experiencing or at risk of experiencing homelessness. And so what we were able to do is work together. I was looking back, we had about 16 different organizations, so city departments, nonprofits, police, fire, educational entities, higher ed, the College of Nursing at Anschutz. So 16 orgs came together. We facilitated that process and sort of brought them together to create this one-day event that ultimately served about 150 individuals and families from our community and brought together over 40 different providers. So we had kids activities. Salvation Army was just doing an incredible job grilling hot dogs and hamburgers. And so we fed people. We had haircuts from Pickens Tech. We had vision and dental and medical care. We had housing assistance and food assistance, clothing. I mean, so you name all of the services that would normally take a person or a family maybe weeks or even months to like circulate the entire city to go to all these different organizations, right? Because they're only open sometimes certain days. But this was the soft opening of the Aurora homeless kind of resource center, day center for the homeless. The first day it was open. And so they had to rush kind of getting things open for this event. And it was just phenomenal to see 75 volunteers serve 150 people with 40 different organizations from across Aurora represented to serve our local residents. And to be a part of that and to be part of that kind of steering team and to kind of come up with this idea as a result of our experience as a class, like being out in the community and hearing from nonprofits about where there were pain points and what was a struggle. Working with Shelley from the city, who was sort of the new person, I mean, brand new, like in the first 6 months of being on the job to really help address the homelessness crisis and sort of how to support and serve those that were experiencing homelessness in our community. To see all that come together in a matter of, 6 months was really phenomenal. And just, I think taught a lot around how you start with the right team. You're clear about the right objectives. You get the right donors involved because we need dollars to make it happen. And so thank you to Wagner and Allstate and Community Campus Partnerships and Citywide Banks. I mean, all of them made that possible because it did take resources. And then you just figure out like, what are the right strategies and the activities, and then get the right volunteers and create an experience that, people remember. And that day, helped a lot of folks. We saw tears and joy and kids laughing and people feeling incredibly, incredible about themselves as they got haircuts and food. And it was just, it was a really magical day, I think, for the volunteers. And I hope for all those that came and participated.
Wow. Incredible. That's amazing.
Yeah, great project, John. And as you were talking, I got thinking about the fact that when you think of all the different service organizations in Aurora, how often that kind of thing is replicated, like not necessarily on that scale, but how many opportunities volunteers provide in the city to meet needs and to bring people together in community. It's really impressive. Our project, I'll be brief, ours was a little bit different. One of the things I think that we started to do in our class that I think has been sustained was like every class meeting, we would bring something. Because I remember early on, I think Community Day was one of the first days, and that was an opportunity to learn about, what different organizations were doing. And I remember, I can't even remember what the organization was, but they needed diapers. They just really needed diapers. And so our next class, we did a diaper drive, and we started, every class we would bring socks, or we would bring diapers, or we would bring food, or we would, bring something that we could collect and then give to one of these organizations. So that felt good on a kind of an ongoing basis. And then my class, the little theater, I can't remember if it has a name, I think it does, but so the Fox Theater, there's the main theater, and then there's a little one like attached to it. They hadn't, I don't know if they had been using it or they weren't able to use it. Anyways, bottom line was they needed seating to be able to use it. I guess they had seating, but it wasn't great. And so they needed new seating. So anyway, so my class built new seating for the little addition to the Fox Theater there. And it's kind of fun because when I go in there now, like our handprints are all up on the wall. And, we got to learn how to use screw guns and weld. And it was super fun. It took a lot of work. It really, kind of to John's point, it required really the whole class to get involved. And not everybody, it was one of those examples of, we all leaders, right? That not everybody is good at the same thing, but everybody is good at something. And so when you bring people together and you bring all those different interests and aptitudes and skills together, you can get a lot of great things done. So not everybody in my class was into using a hammer, but folks that weren't into the building part of it, did other things, like they fed us, they made food and did other things to support the project. So it was really cool, and we were proud when it was done. And the Fox Theater still, uses, well, hopefully they'll be able to use it more soon, right? But it was just kind of, in my world, I don't often see really tangible results of my efforts. And so I thought building something was super cool because we could point at it when we were done and say, hey, look what we made. And this made a difference and in this really important cultural, organization that we have in our city. So again, there's just a whole, and I'm sure over the period of time that Leadership Aurora has been happening, there's been just a huge range of different projects and different contributions. And that's what's really fun because the class chooses what they want to do, which is neat.
Wow. Thank you both. They sound remarkable. Wow.
I think one of the things that comes to mind, and John, as you were speaking about it, is I think Leadership Aurora does a really good job of exposure because there are so many gems in the city, whether those are service organizations or other entities, businesses, things like that. And so the awareness of leaders understanding everything that's in our community, and then to be able to have an opportunity through a class project or potentially even outside of the class through workforce or different types of professional opportunities. How do you then leverage all of that and leverage it for good for our community? So that's just one of the things I was thinking about is that, sometimes I think the name of Leadership Aurora is a little bit, it can be taken in the context of, it's developing leaders. And sure, there's certainly leadership opportunities to grow and to yourself, but I think really it's more about exposure to, what's available in our community and how do we really leverage those resources for good.
Right.
Hey, Jill, and if I could add to that, one of the interesting things about that exposure piece was that, like, when my class went through, we had Education Day, and CCA wasn't a part of Education Day. And so what was kind of great after that, and John's been integral in making some of this happen, is that I think pretty much since then, we have had the opportunity during Education Day to also say, hey, folks, by the way, you have this great community college in your city, and let us tell you a little bit about that. So that was an opportunity for us to let folks know more broadly. And a lot of my classmates didn't know very much about the college at all. So the fact that we've been able to do that over the years since then has been great.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can confirm that CCA is still part of Education Day now. We went to the Lowry campus during our visit, and I think we had a UN type of activity and exercise, and then we spent some time in one of the film studios learning about what's happening there. So, and it was fabulous. Yeah, really fabulous. Well, I think that's a good segue.
Like leadership.
Go ahead, John.
I feel like Leadership Aurora they should rename it to be Unleash Aurora, because I really feel like what it does, it just unleashes potential in people, and it really brings folks together to do things that would not otherwise happen, but they have sort of brought leaders together and then basically just unleashed them in the city. And that's what I think is so powerful about kind of every class's experience, that they just I felt so unleashed because I felt informed and I had these connections and these partnerships and these deep friendships after just a short period of time with people. That I really, truly unleashed would be the word I would describe Leadership Aurora.
Maybe we need to put together a little campaign to change the name. We'll let you lead the charge on that, John. Well, that's a good segue. We've talked a lot about Leadership Aurora and how it's given exposure to CCA. And so, both of you are at this point giving your careers to education. Betsy, you've been in it for a very long time. And John, you as well. So maybe just talk a little bit more about what draws you to this field and why, just the value that you see CCA has in our community.
It's a good plug opportunity.
Yeah.
For the gym that it is.
Yeah. I can start on that one. I think one of the things that amazed me when I got here was how incredibly diverse the city of Aurora is and the college. Because again, as a local institution, we serve, folks in our service area. I had assumed coming from Chicago that Denver, would have that diversity, but I didn't really expect to see it here. And I think one of the, particularly from a community college perspective, one of the things that really motivates me and I think inspires our work at the college is that, community colleges are the open door institutions of higher education. We're the sector that welcomes everyone, that is here to serve everyone. Almost half of the undergraduate students in the country are community college students. And I think in a community like Aurora that is so incredibly diverse and, and has a lot of folks who are low income and, really need the benefit of that education, we play a really critical role. It was interesting. When I got my doctorate at Loyola, one of the things that the Jesuits believe is in education for the greater good, that if we have the privilege of receiving an education, we also have a responsibility to give back to our communities. And one of the things that we know in Colorado is there's a lot of folks like me, like us potentially, who have come here with our educations from other places. And we're working here because it's an incredible place to live and to work and to raise families. And however, Coloradans, we need to increase the attainment of Coloradans. We need to find ways to serve the residents in our communities and in our state. And what we know now is it doesn't have to be a bachelor's degree. That's great if that's a student's goal, but everyone needs some amount of education beyond high school to get a sustainable, good paying job. And, more and more we understand that those credentials can look different. It could be an associate's degree, it could be a bachelor's degree, it could be a certificate. And the role that we play is so important because one of the primary values of the college is equity and understanding that we have a role as educators in providing educational conditions that enable any student who comes to us to succeed. We look at our students from an asset perspective. They are incredible. They are focused. They are hardworking. They are smart. They are resilient. And they need us to step up and support them in that. And frankly, if we weren't here to offer those opportunities, a lot of the students that we serve would never get started. And, communities of color need these opportunities. Low-income communities need these opportunities. I am so proud of the work that we do because we are so inclusive and we are so committed to our students' success, and they do succeed. And we don't have a lot of bells and whistles, and that's not a bad thing. Students come here because they want an education, and and that's their motivation. This past year's been a tough year, and we could talk for a long time about that. But mostly, I think what fuels me is that throughout my life in higher education, I have had the opportunity to work with incredible people. Community college folks in particular are so passionate. They're so dedicated. They just go above and beyond all the time. I'm inspired by them. And I just love our students. They're fascinating. They're diverse. They're motivated. They're inspiring. And Jill early when we were talking before said, we're a gem in this community, but we're not well enough known. And so we have to continue, and John's done a terrific job, through our foundation of helping to get the word out and helping to raise funds and supporting our students with scholarships. And we have to keep doing that because I have a lot of basis for comparison, and this is a really special place, and everyone here is doing good work. So we want to keep our students coming, and we want to continue to serve them in the ways that they need us to serve them. So John knows we could go on and on. So let me turn it over to him because I'm pretty passionate about this.
Well, and I think rightfully so. I mean, Betsy is it's so true that our students are passionate, they're dedicated, they're hardworking, they're gritty, they're incredibly intelligent, they're innovative. And some things that Betsy didn't mention is just if we look back at some data from like 2017 to 2020, what we see is this idea around equity and around closing the completion or success gap or achievement gap for our students of color. I think it's 28.4% more students of color are completing and earning those degrees from 2017 to 2020. And that's the direct work of Betsy and her leadership and a team of people that were really rethinking around how do we create a very different experience to help all students be more successful. And it's working. So our approach in guided pathways and how we no longer allow sort of the community college experience to be a smorgasbord or a buffet, try a little this, try a little that. It really is about being focused and really understanding that every conversation, every academic advising conversation is a career development conversation. It's creating highly competitive robotics and space grant programs that go head to head with Mines and Boulder and Air Force in these competitions and are even winning. Like a couple of years ago, our rover that our students built on about a $2,500 budget was outperforming in terms of tasks out at the sand dunes some of the colleges that spent about $25,000 on their rover. And so that is just the ingenuity that comes. And I think that's what makes, I don't think there's a secret sauce. I don't think there's anything magical about what we do, but it sure is a magical place. Like the hard work and the dedication go into that. And frankly, from the foundation standpoint, it's amazing to be able to engage donors. And at a community college, you think about, yes, we are an affordable option. I think that is one reason students choose and one reason donors like to donate because you can get more return or you can get more life impact for that dollar that you give than if you're going to a place where that, cost per credit is a lot higher. But I think what donors are realizing, what parents are realizing, what our students have known for a while, it's not just an affordable choice. It's not just an open access choice. It's just the smart choice. If you want to lead in student government, you can get involved your freshman year. You want to be on a robotics team, you get involved your freshman year. If you want a pathway to the College of Nursing at Anschutz, you come to CCA and get our integrated nursing pathway. If you want to be part of a top 30 film school in the country, that's still affordable, but you get more hands-on production work than you do at most other film schools across the country or the world, you come to the film school, the Colorado Film School at CCA. I mean, right? So there are all of these reasons that are so much more than just the old days of thinking, oh, community college is just open access. It's an affordable choice. No, it's just the smart choice. And I think Betsy and her team and our team at the college have just made that more and more true every year that I've been here.
Wow.
Isn't he good?
So good. So good. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I know that there are times where you have high school students who graduate with their associate's degree, maybe before they even graduate with their high school diploma, just because of the timing of graduation on certain weekends.
Yeah, well, our relationships with our school districts. So, we serve APS and Cherry Creek School District and a portion of the DPS schools. And the critically important part of that relationship is concurrent enrollment. Yeah. And this opportunity that we can provide in partnership with our colleagues in K-12 to get students started while they're in high school, get them started on their college degrees. And to John's point about the guided pathways, that's why it's been so important to work with students so they're working toward a goal. They have an end in mind so that they're taking the right courses and that they can really, it's a free education. It's a free college education in high school, and we want them to maximize that. And so, yeah, Jill, to your point, we have students that, are graduating from CCA with their associates and then graduating from their high schools. It's really tremendous. And I know families appreciate it. And those students have just been great. And they are a significant percentage of our enrollment. They're a really important population for us. And it's just a great way to make a difference and get them early.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, two years ago, it was like at graduation. So 2 years ago, I think our youngest graduate was 17 and our oldest graduate was 71.
Wow.
It's pretty amazing.
Incredible. That's amazing.
So really, there's no excuses. It's available for anyone.
Yeah.
Anyone.
Yep.
So just kind of going off of that, just a little bit more, you all have spoken really wonderfully just about some of the accessibility of the community college and some of the wonderful programs. Are there any other areas or programs that the college and the foundation offer, back to the community that maybe not a lot of other people know, or people that might be watching this program that you all can maybe shed more light on? Just some of those unique, wonderful opportunities, like John just mentioned, in the top 30 across the country, the film school. I didn't know that. That's amazing. Are there other areas that the college ultimately offers that maybe people don't necessarily know too much about?
I would have mentioned the film school for sure, because it's called the Colorado Film School. And so most folks that are even aware of the film school don't know it's part of the Community College of Aurora. And it's an incredible program. I think I would say, because we have a lot of great programs, but keep an eye on us, because one of the things that is sort of in progress is that, so there's a lot of conversation around community colleges and workforce. And again, because we're a comprehensive community college, we have transfer degrees. Our students go on to 4-year institutions, again, primarily in Colorado, or they can get an associate's and they can go right to work, or they can get a certificate. And we also have English as a second language programs, which is really important, citizenship and high school equivalency. So that's really important as well. But we're also starting to do some provide some non-credit opportunities, which is new for us. And I think really important, because again, as folks are looking at maybe upskilling or having opportunities, maybe just to learn something very specific, we want to be able to provide that, not necessarily in the context of a credit class, but also we're really looking to ramp up the programs that we offer that specifically address the needs of employers in our community, because we have to be part of the economic recovery. This has been a tremendously hard year for everyone. It's been hard on our students. It's been hard on our state. And we anticipate that students will be coming back to us looking for opportunities to get jobs, to get new jobs, to get better jobs. And so we want to be really intentional as we go forward. We're starting to do this. We've done it more over the past few years. But what do our employers need, our local employers? Because again, we're local. Our students are apt to stay here. So how can they get good jobs in Aurora, in the metro area? So you will see, I think, there's, again, going to be some transition in leadership, but that's one of the priorities that I'm trying to kind of slam home before I leave, is that we have to be part of that economic recovery. And in order for us to do that, we have to add more around career and technical education, workforce programs, and continue to make those important connections in the community with our employers.
Wow.
John?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's true. So you look at across those 6, we have 6 of these, what we would call guided pathways. Might be easier to think of them as career pathways. But I think about what we're doing in like our health sciences program and sort of the opportunities to grow there, that integrated nursing pathway program that is a partnership with and Shoot. So we take those first 2 years, and then our students have that opportunity to go to the College of Nursing, a highly competitive nursing program. We have an amazing first responders program. So police, fire, EMS, EMT work. So our students are not only just, some of them are running entire EMS divisions in some of our outlying communities even, and many are across our police and fire across the state. And what's amazing about that is like the work that we've been doing for years around simulation work, around bias training and all of that, like, in the last year, that kind of training has come to the forefront. And so it is our instructors and our faculty chairs that are driving conversations at a state level, even, I think. And then you have our STEM education and the sciences. But then, of course, you've got other things as an English major, a shout out to our English department. Like, they are phenomenal. They are teaching students how to think critically, how to write and to read and to communicate those thoughts in a very compelling and informative and dynamic way. And so I kind of look across the board. It doesn't matter like what your passion is. You're going to step into a small classroom, 20-ish to 22 students, with a professor that knows your name, that cares about you, that over the course of the semester is going to like get to know you and understand like what's happening in the rest of your life, because life happens. And those are the things that keep students from continuing. And I'll just kind of close with, we're in the process now, working with some funding partners and others. We're developing a program based on kind of an initiative down in Pueblo called Return to Earn. And what we realized that in the last year, especially, this is true every year, but even more so in the last year, we've had about 1,700 students stop out, not drop out, but they stopped out of their path to that college credential, that college degree, 1,700 with 45 credits. They only need 60 to get the degree. So they were making progress, they were doing well, but then COVID and life happened. And so the college has really taken a step in this area to say, we can't allow that to be the end of their story. Wow. And so we're working to develop, and we're now, we'll be posting this new jobs description for a completion navigator to help bring these students back to CCA to finish those last 15 or fewer credits, get that degree, and then really be able to enter into the post-COVID job market in a much more competitive way. And so we're pretty excited about just that thoughtful intentionality that CCA sort of approaches everything.
Wow. I find that just incredibly beautiful, just how you all are just stewarding, the challenges that we've seen over this last year with, and not just COVID, there's been so many other things that have happened across our communities, across our country, unfortunately, that have impacted our families, our students. And just to see you all stewarding that leadership and that service back is so wonderful and powerful to see. And so I think just kind of speaking to that, are there some things that maybe you've seen over this past year that just has inspired you? It sounds just incredible to see some of the initiatives that are coming forth here in the very near future to help just continue to serve the students, serve their success in terms of getting involved in their communities and getting into well-paying jobs. Are there just any maybe small examples that you've seen over this past year that has really just inspired you, something that, navigating through such a tough season that we've all experienced, things that maybe you've seen with your students or even just with the college itself?
Jordan, to that question, I would say the thing that I have noticed over this past year that I think is really impressive, and it's kind of how educators are wired, I think, and this is, I'm sure, true for K-12 as well, is that we have all been learners. And we haven't had a lot of time to meander up the learning curve. So I've just been really impressed. I mean, I have to own for myself, I'm a boomer. I'm not like great with technology. I can use it in a pinch, but I, like everybody, like parents with kiddos at home and people that are working from home, we've all had to learn, right? But in an educational setting, our faculty and our instructors have had to figure out like how to help students learn while they're learning also in this kind of new way of delivering classes. It's not our preference. We're going to go back to face-to-face. That's our strength. However, we will probably do a lot more online than we used to. But I got to hop into a few classes last semester just to kind of see what was going on. And wow, it was just impressive. Like how creative they are and how they get engagement and how much they've learned about the technology. Yeah. I mean, every semester since this all started, it's gotten better. And I've just been so impressed and so touched by the resilience and the, just kind of that attitude of, okay, we've got this. And for our staff too, not just in the classroom, but, how do you do advising remotely and how do you support students remotely? We're a hugging kind of place. Like we really miss, just being there physically with our students. and creating that climate and culture in our classrooms and on our campus that lets them know, we value you, we believe in you, we're here for you. That's a little harder in, a Brady Bunch, kind of conversation. And they're doing it. Again, we're looking forward to getting back to face, but man, Jordan, we could give you so many examples. And for me, just being able to hop on and kind of watch, what was going on was really affirming. I'm impressed with human beings, frankly. The humor, the creativity, the resilience that we've seen sort of across the board to get through this thing has really been impressive. And we've certainly seen it at CCA.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think just the opportunity in some ways to slow down, the actual need to just take a deep breath. Okay, several deep breaths, like maybe every 5 minutes. But as you do that, the ability to just really engage with people. And I would say even from the foundation standpoint, the opportunity to engage with a lot of donors through technology, a lot of community partners. Like, I want to brag on Jill. She's on this call, but Jill and I have a meeting later with a donor in the community, and this was, it's about relationship, and it's really about, like, that's what I love about folks that have been part of Leadership Aurora. Jill being one of those, and it's just like, we're in this for what is best for our community. Let's move the community forward. And so the kind of partnerships that have been formed in this time, and we're all having to dig a little extra deep. But this partnership with the APS Foundation and Jill, and working and, like, how do we help Aurora students get to that college degree? We're finding new ways to partner in a time where it has forced, and sort of, I think in some ways it has been a multiplier effect to some innovations that were happening slowly have now moved, 5 or 10 years ahead of the slow progress that they were making. And so while it is, let's be honest, we're in a tough place as a country. Many of us have known people who are battling even right this minute. I do personally, and folks that have died from Corona, and folks that have been affected through all of the social unrest that we've experienced on top of the pandemic during the last year. So we have to be real, those struggles and that pain, it is not, people will not look back on this as a positive year. But in other ways, there have been those bright spots that you mentioned, even in the midst of a real struggle and real pain for people, there have been bright moments, and you've seen humanity in many ways. I think we've seen both. We've seen the worst of humanity, and we've seen some of the best of humanity in a time of crisis. And that's not surprising that we've seen so much of the best of humanity right here in Aurora.
Wow. I think that's kind of the mic drop kind of wrap up ending here as we're drawing our conversation to a close. And I know you both, Jill and John, you all have a call to get to here pretty shortly, but I just want to thank and honor both of you for just being here today, and just showcasing the incredible work that you all are doing just to serve our students, serve our communities and families, and in so many different ways, just beyond just the education that's getting provided. It's a real lasting impact that you all are having on the community. And so we just thank you and honor you for that. And so, Jill, I don't know if you have anything else that you would like to add, or Betsy and John, if there's anything else that you would like to just add before we just close up the conversation today.
I think just to wrap it up, a big thank you. And I think, we, as maybe the best class ever, but for sure the longest class ever, we want to carry on this legacy that you were talking about of, really everything that's needed for our community and education, and helping students, whether they are 17 or 71, to have that experience and to be able to build into themselves, whether those are certificates or longer term pathways. So thanks for what you do. And if we can ever be of service to you and to the students and to the community, you can count on us.
Yes.
Jordan and Jill, I want to thank you for the opportunity. And I want to thank my friend and colleague, John, who is always a great partner for me. And, he and his volunteers and his staff are great partners for the college. And so, thanks for giving us some airtime. We always appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Take
Thank you.
care.
Wonderful.
All right.
Appreciate
Awesome.
it.
Well, thank you everyone for joining today. It was wonderful to have Betsy and John from the Community College of Aurora. Thank you for joining this exciting episode of Impact Aurora, inspiring unity, change, and service. And we hope this just inspires each and every one of you to get involved in our local community and give back and really just make our community a better place to live, work, and play every single day. So with that, have a blessed day. Have an awesome week. Thank you all so much. Take care.